Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harshaw.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today, I bring you Andrea Waltz and Richard Fenton. Before I bring on my guests, I need to share something important. For years, I struggled to feel confident around the type of people that I spend much of my time with. Successful people, millionaires, CEOs, leaders. And part of it was mindset. But part of it also was how I looked. You know, they say look good, feel good, as the saying goes. And I didn't look good. I didn't have clothes that made me feel confident. So I started buying expensive shirts. Then I had to get them tailored fit to me, my body, my athletic build. And then I discovered a new shirt. It's not only designed by athletes for athletes, but it's designed to fit an athlete's body type. And it's made of athletic material. It's like putting on your favorite workout shirt. But it's a business shirt. It's machine washable. It's wrinkle-free, which is a deal breaker for me. I hate high-maintenance clothing. And it looks better than the expensive shirts that I used to buy, and it even costs a little bit less. So I feel more confident now that I'm wearing good-looking, well-fitted clothing that's designed to fit me, to fit athletes. If you want to see it, I actually shot a quick short video of me opening my second shirt. Yes, I got a second shirt, and I'm going to be buying more. To show you the fabric and the fit, just go to jimharshawjr.com, grab the coupon code, and take a look for yourself. You can actually try one totally risk-free because it's free shipping for my listeners with that special discount code at jimharshawjr.com/shirt. And returns, exchanges, 100% free within 30 days, so there's absolutely no risk to try one out. Again, jimharshawjr.com/shirt. This is my first time modeling clothing, so don't laugh. The shirt's awesome, but my modeling skills, not so much. It's probably worth checking out the page just to see my bad modeling. Again, jimharshawjr.com/shirt. Andrea and Richard are my first dual interview on Success Through Failure. They are the premier experts on overcoming failure, rejection, and the fear of the word no. They believe that courage is the single most important virtue on which everything else in life is built, and that when people build their courage, anything is possible. They co-wrote the best-selling book titled Go for No, Yes is the Destination, No is How You Get There. Through the dialogue of the two main characters, they've created just a really entertaining story that presents key concepts that are essential to success in anything in life, sales and anything else. They are now living the dream, speaking and writing and traveling across the country, delivering their message to tens of thousands of people and changing lives with their Go for No message. As always, grab the action plan from this episode. You know what to do. Go to jimharshawjr.com/action, and we're going to have all the tips and tactics and resources that Andrea and Richard share with us here today. So, Andrea, Richard, welcome to the show.
Hey, Jim. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, Jim, this is great.
Yeah, great to have you guys. So I read your book, Go for No. It's such a great book. As I told you before we got on the show here, like everybody should read this book. I mean, everybody. I'm keeping this. My oldest child is 11. I've got 4 kids. Oldest one's 11. I'm going to have him read this not too far down the road because it's just such a great book and such a great message. But no hurts. Like when we hear no, it hurts. It makes us feel like we screwed up, like, we just get beat down a little bit more each time when we hear no. But you're saying we need to go for no. Why?
Well, it is. It's a counterintuitive philosophy, right? I mean, just like your message of achieving success through failure, it seems like, well, that shouldn't be. But you can't success your way to success. You have to fail your way to success. And that is very similar to what the Go for No message is all about. If you want to achieve yeses in your life, if you want to get the woman of your dreams to marry you, if you want to close the sale, whatever it happens to be, you're going to hear some no's along that path. And so so our point of Go for No is really to embrace those no's, to intentionally go out and increase the no's you're hearing, because when you do that, the yeses appear in your life in greater quantities. And so you actually increase your level and chances to have great success.
Right. And the reason that no's hurt so much when we hear them is because that's the programming we've been given around the word no. We've been programmed to believe that when you hear the word no, that you've done something wrong, that you're on the wrong track, that you're further from success, that you're failing somehow, and somehow that failing will lead to ultimate failure, meaning you'll never get to your goal. But if you can reprogram your attitude about the word no, and when you hear the word no, you have a different interpretation, and that interpretation is you're actually on the right track, you're actually doing good work, you're actually closer to your goals, then no doesn't have to hurt quite so much. In fact, it can actually become enjoyable.
So how do we get there? How do we reprogram, right? I mean, this sounds good, right? We sit here, we're talking, I'm in a comfortable place, you're in a comfortable place. The listener, they're probably, I don't know, working out or driving or something like that. And, all is well right now. But what happens, when the rubber meets the road? Like, the listener, jumps off the podcast, they got to make a phone call, a sales call, or they talk to their boss about something and they get a no. I mean, how do we reprogram ourselves? How do we reprogram ourselves to actually interpret it as a positive in the moment? Because in the moment, it's like, God, we just got punched in the gut. How do we go about that reprogramming so we can rethink this?
Well, Jim, that is an excellent question, and you're so right. That is exactly what happens, and it's easy to talk about it and to share the platitudes and sometimes the cliches or whatever.
Sure.
So, one of the things that we teach people is to first start with a no awareness, which is when you hear the word no, what does that no mean to you? What do you do? What are your reactions? And so the first thing that we encourage people to do is to start changing the things that you say to yourself and then your actions. So typically what happens is, like you said, somebody jumps off this podcast, they go make a sales call or whatever, and they get that no. And usually what we do is the first thing is we start berating ourselves. Like, oh man, that didn't go well. That, you blew that. Oh, you said this. That was stupid. You sounded lame, blah, blah, blah. So there's all these kind of, real negative reinforcements to that interaction. And then what do you do with your actions? And so typically, and I'm going to use the salesperson as an example, because that's kind of really where we tend to speak, and kind of our niche is really people in the sales world is what do you do then? And a lot of salespeople just quit for the rest of the day. It's like they got that bad no and they give up and they quit for the whole day. And so really it's about the reprogramming process really is about not berating yourself, and in that moment reinforcing and saying, okay, I got to know, that's great. And I'm actually going to keep getting those no's. And Rich will probably tell you a little bit about our process that we call setting no goals, which is how we really have people put that into action.
And that is really probably one of the main ways that people reprogram the way they think about no, is that almost any person that you speak to, and again, I'll use the sales example, it's Friday afternoon and you ask a salesperson anywhere, so how many yeses did you get this week? They can tell you immediately. They'll say 2, right? Because they know they closed 2 deals. They got 2 yeses. They know their numbers when it comes to yes. But then you say, so exactly how many no's did you get this week? And most people go like, what do you mean? Well, listen, if you really want to get to yes, you have to understand that yes and no are a package deal. You don't spend your time trying to hear the word yes while simultaneously trying to avoid the word no. You understand that yes and no come together, that you can't have a lot of yeses in your life unless you're willing to invite a lot of no's into your life. So if you can get people to start thinking about the relationship, the connection between yes and no, not that one's the hero and the other one's the villain, but one's the hero and the other one's the sidekick, right? Who's just as interested in the hero's success. And you understand that they're just opposite sides of the same coin, that you can't have one without the other. Then you start hearing the word no a little bit differently. But we take it one step further, and the answer is, we tell people that when you hear the word no, the very first thing you need to do internally, and then even after you're not with somebody, to say it out loud, you need to say terrific, fantastic, I'm doing good work, I'm one step closer to success. Conversely, what most people do when they hear the word yes is they celebrate. Ooh, I got a yes, I'm fabulous. And we tell them, listen, take that down a little bit. You see, because you're making yes this wonderful thing, and you're making no this terrible thing. We want people to hear the word yes and no, both the same. We want them to have the same emotional reaction, to where the reaction to both is in the neutral zone. Hey, I got a no. No big deal. I'm doing good work. I got a yes. Okay, that's great. I need to move on and get my next no. And the minute that you neutralize the emotional power of the words yes and no, now suddenly they don't have power over you.
Yeah, that's so interesting, because we all intuitively, when you explain it that way, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. And it goes back to, Andrea, what you said is awareness, having that awareness that knows part of it. Everybody listening, they have a yes destination they want. Whether they're in sales or anything else, it doesn't matter. We all have a yes that we want to get to. That's the destination, like you say in your title of your book. Yes is the destination, and we all have that destination of yes that we want to get to. But it's so easy to throw a couple asks out there and get a couple of no's and go, well, maybe this isn't the right path. Maybe I'm asking for the wrong thing, or maybe it's just not meant to be, and maybe I'm just not good enough at whatever it is I'm trying to do. But then we hear these stories about, entrepreneurs who, they talk to 50 or 75 banks or venture capitalists before they actually got funding for their business. And it's just this insane ability to persist despite the no's, which is just it's a hallmark of successful people. It's just incredible. We hear it over and over. We hear about Olympians who, they get, they're trying to find the right coach or the right training facility, or they're in some situation where they just get turned down over and over and over, but they persist and they eventually succeed. But it's so often easy to go, well, that's them. They're different, right? I'm not, I don't have that ability. I don't have whatever. But it's like, your story's not yet been told. Your story is still being told. You're still writing, so you have a canvas and you're painting on this canvas of your life. And there's so much opportunity out there if you can understand that no is part of the process. So how did this all come about? How did you guys become experts at this? How did you sort of come across this and experience this and then, write the book and now doing what you're doing? How did what's the foundation of this?
Well, and we couldn't agree with you more, Jim. That was really well said. Could not agree with you more. And it's kind of funny how it happened, actually. We were in the corporate training world, and Richard and I met at work. He convinced me that we should launch our own speaking and training company. So we quit our jobs. We don't recommend this approach. Quit our jobs with no safety net and went off and really kind of a go for no story in and of itself. Just had to literally pick up the phone and start calling companies to hire us. But one of the things that what we were doing fundamentally was we were doing workshops for retail organizations in the areas of customer service, sales, management, things like that. And in an 8-hour day or a 4-hour workshop, the one concept that everybody loved and the thing that we started seeing and hearing about was this idea of go for no, because it's a story, kind of a signature story that we tell in the book. And we said, this go for no thing is really powerful. It's the thing that everybody seems to love. And so we said, well, let's write the book and we'll just focus on this and let's dig deep into it. Like, let's look at all of the nuances. Let's not just deal with it on the surface, right? So, we dig into how to set goals for the number of no's you're going to hear and, talking about celebrating failure and talking about failing as a team, right? If you can get everybody failing with you, you can kind of have that group failure, a group of no's. And so we really dug into it, and then I kind of fell in love with it. I mean, I know for me, I'm super passionate about it, and especially for female entrepreneurs who are out there. I think sometimes, and I don't know what your experience is with this, Jim, but we get kind of an equal number of men and women. But for me, I love teaching women how to get out there and ask, because sometimes we can, as women, just kind of take that first no and then never go back and assume that no meant never.
Yeah, exactly. And, one of the things that we laughed about early in our business first couple of years, people always kept saying, you got to figure out what your brand is. You got to figure out what your brand is. And somebody said to us once, well, your customers will tell you what your brand is. And I thought, that's ridiculous. Your customers don't tell you what your brand is. You decide what your brand is. And then you publish it and you print it and you market it and you repeat it, right? And you make people love your brand. And as Andrea said, we were doing these full day workshops and everybody wanted to talk about the same 15 minutes. And then one day we walked into a retailer we were doing some work with, and the vice president of the company said, hey, come with me. I want to show you something. And he led us down the hallway and he opened up the door, and the employees had all taken big, huge letters and written "Go for No" down the wall towards the lunchroom. And Andrea and I turned and looked at her and said, hey, maybe our customers will tell us what our brand is, And so it turns out that our customers really were the ones who heard the phrase, over an 8-hour day and said, no. The 8 hours is great, thanks. But this was the golden nugget that we really wanted to hear.
So you guys just started taking action, it sounds like. I mean, like you quit your jobs, like you said, you don't recommend it, but you took massive action. And, you burned the ships, as they say, behind you, and you guys just started moving forward. I think
we really did.
Yeah. I mean, so many people are afraid of that action, right?
Yeah, well, and Jim, that is where I think your message is so powerful, which is, this idea of failing. And to us, what was more important was to get out there and try and see, hey, can we do this on our own? Can we make this happen? And we really did have no idea what we were doing. We started calling, customers and or prospects and yes, there was some luck involved from a business standpoint, but we did take action and we worked really hard. And one of the things that we've learned over the years is that it's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay to not be perfect. I mean, we look back at our materials back then and it's like wildly embarrassing what we were going out with, but that's just where you start. In order to be great, you've got to be good. In order to be good, you've got to be, just okay. And a lot of us start off just bad, but you fail your way to success. You learn what you're doing and you adjust, and you've got to have that vision, I think, pulling you along. And we did have a vision of being entrepreneurs and kind of doing our own thing. And we had the passion for the message, which is also pretty huge because we see so many people who aren't living their dream, whatever it is, who are letting just the fear of rejection or the fear of failure be the thing that stops them. And it's very painful to see that because there's so many other obstacles in the world, right? So many other things that will stop you, and to let yourself and your own self-imposed limitations stop you, it's just really painful to see.
Yeah, I want to key on one thing you mentioned there is like you mentioned you got a little lucky at one point. It's like, I see every successful person I see, they reflect back on this time when they were taking massive action, and then they bring up luck, right? It's like, well, if you make 100 phone calls and luckily one strikes, well, you made 100 phone calls. You got 99 no's, 99 failures, and yeah, sure, you got lucky once, but the more action you take, the luckier you get. And I've said it on the show before, you can't stumble into success. You can't stumble into something unless you're moving forward. And you guys were moving forward. I mean, do you guys have any specific examples, or maybe just a little bit about your book of somebody who is a success story through that? I mean, I don't know if you guys use any sort of stories over and over in your workshops or your speaking, but there's I feel like stories really resonate with people, and your book is a great story.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have a bunch of stories. One of my favorite actual testimonials that we got from somebody was, and this is, there's that phrase, ignorance on fire. And I loved this. This was from a lady named Carrie. And she wrote us this letter and she said, I became the number one seller of insurance in my company, and I won a trip, got all the accolades, won the award on stage and everything. And she said, I had never sold insurance before. Quite frankly, I really didn't know what I was doing, but I read Go for No. And I knew that if I could just hear no more often, if I could just collect a lot of no's, the yeses would come. And of course, she took massive action, and she went out there and she collected a lot of no's. And that's obviously the key. You have to do the work. You have to put in the activity. And she did that and kind of was giving us the credit. But it was so fun to see that letter and to see her succeed like that. And of course, our position is, well, yeah, you were the one who went out there and put yourself in the position to fail, got all of those no's. And then, of course, she ended up learning the business as she went. So it's kind of that thing where you throw yourself into the deep end. She had no idea what she was doing and beat all those other people who were obviously experienced in that industry just because she was willing to endure that failure in far greater quantities than anyone else.
Yeah, and I have a very quick story that I have to tell you, which is funny because it's really more about luck than it is about failure per se, and it's about the actual publication of the book Go for No. Andrea and I had written one previous book before we released Go for No, and it had done okay. We sold enough that it made sense to have published it. But then we wrote Go for No, and we had great anticipation and hopes for it. We thought Go for No was just going to blow the roof off. It would be an automatic overnight bestseller. And we released the book to the resounding sound of crickets. I mean, it was just like, wow, did we misjudge that? Nobody's interested in this book. We sent out 500 review copies. And, we got a few orders, but nothing at all that was earth-shattering. And this is embarrassing, Jim, but for the next 5 years, we didn't do hardly anything with the book. We sat on it. We sold a few copies here or there, but we really weren't selling copies of the book. We finally got so discouraged over the fact that the book wasn't selling that we decided to start giving copies away. So we went to a sales conference. We brought 20 copies of the book with us. We had given away 19 of them just to people almost at random. And I had the one book left. I said, hey, let's take this back with us. And Andrea said, no, that guy in front of you, he said he was in sales. Give it to him. So I handed the book to this man. 3 days later, the phone rings. It's the guy I gave the book to. He says, my name is Tom Schaff. He goes, you gave me your book at the conference. He goes, and I want you to know that I think it's one of the best sales books I've ever read. And I said, wow, that's great. Thanks, Tom. He said, I also want you to know it's got the worst cover in the history of publishing. He said, your cover on your book is so bad that when I got home, I threw it in the garbage can. He goes, but when I went to empty the garbage can, I saw the book, and he goes, I love books so much, I had to read at least. I said, I'll give them one page. And he said, so I read one page. I said, I flipped the page. I read the second page. He said, I got to the final page of the book. I was still standing at the garbage can. And I said, this is one heck of a good book. He said, so if you're willing to change the cover, he said, I'll take 5,000 copies. And Andrea and I looked at each other and said, wow, I think maybe we misplayed this one. So we changed the cover. And I've got so many stories about publishers who have passed on the book and all different types of things. But now we sit 10 years after that phone call. We're still on the top 10 bestseller list in Amazon. And we've sold hundreds of thousands of copies of this book that we couldn't sell any copies of for the first 5 years. Now, the question was, did we get lucky? Or was every single piece of our action, every step in that process, every book we gave away, was that all part of what put us in that moment to be there and present to answer that phone when the luck happened? And that is the merger of hard work and luck.
Yeah, amen to that. All the work, all the effort, it results in an opportunity. And you were there with the book in hand, gave it to the guy, and that's the one that struck. You didn't know which one was, and that's such an incredible story. I think back to my wrestling career, and I wrestled the match of my life, the biggest match, the match that mattered the most, which is they call it the blood round. It's the All-American round. If you win, you're an All-American in front of 15,000 people in the arena. If you lose, you go home with nothing. And I feel like I got a little bit lucky. I wrestled the match of my life. I wrestled out of my mind and competed. It's probably the best I've ever competed in my life in that 7 minutes. And did I just get a little bit lucky that was the match, or was that just 17 years of training, blood, sweat, and tears, and year-round training, and going far beyond what most human beings would ever put themselves through voluntarily? was it luck or was it something that I earned? And the line blends. It doesn't matter. In the end, it doesn't matter. You look at, successful people from all walks of life, and they're just people who take action. I want to, I want to work with people who take action as opposed to people who, just don't take action and maybe get lucky, win the lottery, because you can replicate the action, and that's a skill that you can learn. And every time you take action, you learn, right? I mean, you fail every time you get a no, you improve and you learn. Am I right?
Absolutely. And I would contend, Jim, that you're on the trajectory you're on in your life in part because of that win that you had in that 7 minutes when your preparation met luck. On the other hand, and this isn't what happened, but let's just say hypothetically, for whatever reason, you made the wrong move, or the other guy made the right move, or the match ended 10 seconds too early or 10 seconds too late, and you lost. The reality is, if you're the type of person who understands that any one defeat in life does not define the rest of your life, then that just becomes another part of your story. And you're the type of person, from what I've read about you and what I know about you, Jim, is that you're the type of person who would have moved on, found some other challenge, been successful at something else, somewhere else, maybe even this topic, I don't know, but you'd be on a different trajectory for success. And that failure could be just one more stepping stone towards where you finally ended up. And so really, I think the biggest thing is that people put too much emphasis on any one success and too much emphasis on any one failure. And they think that one event defines who they are forever. And it's not. The only thing that defines them is what they do after the event. Right. And so it really is a mindset issue.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think about that, and it's like, had I lost that match, what would be different? Nothing really would be different, but you kind of think of it, I think of my career a little bit differently, but you shouldn't, because what's one move? What's one small little thing that could have happened? That shouldn't change your mindset anyway, right? Had you not handed that book to that man, the book doesn't sell the way it does, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still an amazing book. It doesn't change the fact that you guys have a great message and can spread it and help a lot of people. But you're right. Anytime we place too much weight on any one success or any one failure, or many successes or many failures for that matter, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And I think people are capable of so much more, but they just are overwhelmed. I want to say overwhelmed with self-doubt, but I don't even know if it's overwhelming. Sometimes it's underwhelming, and it's just kind of below the surface, but it stops you from picking up the phone. It stops you from opening your mouth or writing or starting that business or doing whatever it is that takes courage, because you guys talk a lot about courage. How do we build that courage? And what do you mean when you say that everything that we want in life is really, based on our ability to build courage?
Yeah, we do. We talk a lot about courage. And of course, you can't have courage without fear. And there's so much of what we're talking about has to do with fear. And we hear from people all the time who are really frozen in fear often. They're terrified of making the wrong move. They don't like rejection. They don't want to ask for things, even if they're things that they want and dreams that they have. I mean, they will let that hold them back. And so it really is kind of a package deal when we're talking about courage. It's really about having people value failure. That is the kind of mental model that we're trying to get people to see, so that it pulls them through that fear that they have. And that is where that courage comes in. Dealing with that fear sometimes can be challenging. There's some times where we find that if we're talking to somebody and it's just there's only so many different ways that you can force someone, dragging them, kicking and screaming, and getting them to take action. What we say all the time is that you can't wait for that fear to go away. It's just never going to go away. You've got to deal with it. Even if you are horrible, the more you take action, and this sounds cliche, but it's so true. The more action you take, the more the fear, is diminished. And I remember, when we launched our business, Jim, Richard was the speaker of the two of us. I was very happy being the marketer, the person on the phone selling our engagements, all of the behind the scenes stuff. And one day we started speaking to more and more groups that had kind of 50-50 men and women. And then sometimes we'd get groups that had 80% females in the audience. And he said, you'd be such an asset to us in the Go for No message. And he said, and besides, I'm tired of traveling. And I realized it's not that I'm really tired of traveling. I'm just tired of traveling without you. So we decided to become a pair and we speak together on stage. But I have to tell you, it was my life's mission not to speak in public. I mean, I had a disastrous 7th grade presentation on the dangers of smoking, which convinced me that I was never going to be a professional speaker. It was the most humiliating moment of my life. And so when he said, you should speak with me on stage, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like a very good idea. But I was super passionate about the topic. So I fought my way through it and started doing freebie presentations all over the place just to, get my confidence up. And I'm sure that I had some pretty bad presentations, poor audience members, but at least they sat there and let me get that experience. And I'm living proof that the terrible fear, and I, one of those people that, my voice would shake, my knees would shake. Just everything you can imagine. It was just horrible. I moved through that fear. So, when you think about courage and you think about taking that action, it's got to be done just having to experience that fear and not having it go away.
Yeah. Episode 63, Richard Ryerson, for the listener, if you're interested in that one, Richard Ryerson, episode 63, he interviewed on his own podcast, Steve Forbes. And he asked him during his interview, he said, when does the fear go away? And at what point did you stop being fearful? And he said, never. He goes, I feel it all the time. He goes, it's just part of it. It's part of going to get what you want in life is facing that fear. And I think so many people just look at successful people and they assume they don't have fear, but that's not the case. They have fear. They move through it. They move forward through it. And it's hard. It's not easy. They're, that successful person that's in your mind. I'm talking to the listener right now, that successful person that's in your mind that you want to emulate or that you respect, picture them sitting, maybe it's in front of the phone or about to walk into a presentation. When you think that they have all this confidence, they have fear, they have self-doubt, they have anxiety. Those things are real for everybody. So just facing them and taking action helps you get over that fear. It's so important to understand that. And I was never a good public speaker as well, and I was just terribly nervous getting in front of crowds. And one day I realized that I had to do something about it because I had embarrassed myself at this one particular event. And I was just like, man, that cannot happen again. So I signed up for Toastmasters again, taking action, signed up for Toastmasters, did that for about 9 months. And an opportunity came up on a radio station. Again, it's one of those things like, is it luck or is it just me moving forward? Well, I flipped on a radio station that I never listened to. Commercial came on and said, applications for the Charlottesville TEDx event. It's one of the top 1% largest TED events in the world. And so I'm like, man, that would be so cool to do, but I don't know. I don't have anything people want to hear, had that self-doubt again. Plus I'm not a speaker. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. I submitted my application. A week later, I heard back. They said, we've selected 25 people to present at what we call an open mic night. 500 people in the audience, and the audience votes on the best talk, the best speech. And I won. I won the audience vote, which was floored me. And then I got to work with a speaking coach for the next month, and I made it onto the main stage, which was the main event, and spoke in front of 1,000 people, packed audience at beautiful Paramount Theater in downtown Charlottesville. And people look at that and they go, wow, you're just an amazing public speaker. You just got that knack for it. And you have no idea, right? They have no idea the fear that I had to push through and move through. And I think that's the case with anybody who's successful at anything. So let's get actionable if we can here, guys. So the listener likes to get something that they can take action on moving out of this interview. What's something they can do in the next 24 to 48 hours, something they can do in the next day or two to really start moving through their fears, accepting no as a sign of progress, and moving towards their goals?
Okay, well, what we recommend, and this I think is the action step. It's the best activity that we've ever stumbled across, and it is to set a no goal. Now, by that, we don't mean that people should have no goals. Obviously, goals are great, but to set a goal for the number of no's that you intend to hear or collect or obtain, whatever word you want to use, over the course of a period of time. So let's say it's 10 no's over the course of the next 3 days. Now, it could be different for different people depending on what you do for a living. Let's just say it's 10 no's over the next 3 days without any regard whatsoever for how many people tell you yes. So you could go up to 10 people in a row, and all 10 people could say no to you, whatever it is you're asking for, whether it's a sale or fundraising or whatever it happens to be.
Sure.
Or it could be that everybody you walk up to tells you yes, 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 yeah. Everybody's saying yes to you. It doesn't matter. The point is, at the end of 3 days, you need to get 10 no's and ignore how many people say yes to you. It doesn't matter. That's not your goal. Your goal is not to get yes. Your goal is to get no. And go get your 10 no's and see how you feel when you've gotten the 10th no. Because I will tell you that when you change your mindset and you suddenly start making no the goal, no starts being interesting. It starts being fun. It starts being the objective. You actually find yourself wanting to hear the word no because you'll have one more no towards your no goal. And I will tell you the funniest story, the best story, and we've had a number of stories that are very similar to this, but the story of this young lady who attended one of our seminars. She had decided she was going to set her no goal to get to 10 no's by the end of the week. It was Friday at 5:30 in the afternoon. She had 9 no's. And she said, I was so disappointed. I was so disappointed that I didn't get my 10th no. And then suddenly, and by the way, she owned a home-based business. Suddenly she said, my next door neighbor, the doctor. She had put off approaching this man for 3 years because she knew in her heart that he would tell her no. So she had never gone over and introduced herself or approached him. And she said, perfect, he's my 10th no. So she got herself dressed up. She walked across the lawn. She knocked on his door. She proceeded to give him her presentation, and he said yes and joined her team.
Wow.
Now, the whole thing is, would that have happened had she not had the no goal? Right. And most interestingly, she said, and as thrilled as I was when I got that yes, there was still a part of me that said, you were supposed to get a 10th no, and you didn't see it through.
Sure.
She said, I never did that again.
Yeah.
So there it is. That's the action plan for anybody who'd like to take a step. Set a no goal and make that no goal happen and see how you feel about yourself and about the word no after you hit your goal.
And Jim, I just want to add to that. It doesn't, again, we, talk a lot about sales, but this is really a life philosophy. And so
yes.
If you want to just become a person who can handle rejection better, can move through failure easier, you could just have fun with this all day long and just make it a game. So it's like go to a restaurant, they seat you at one table and just practice asking right for a better table, a different table, and getting turned down that way. Or you check into a hotel and you say, hey, can you upgrade me to the nicer, better penthouse suite, blah, 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 and try to get a no that way. So there's every time that you have this opportunity, go for it and try it. And it will just turn you into the kind of person who can handle that better. So when something in your life does become really important, when there is this critical moment where you have to ask for something, you've kind of developed that skill, that courage muscle.
Yeah, things will start happening. That's so cool. For the listener, it's all right there. It's in front of you. It's black and white, what you need to do. Pretty, very clear action plan. So thank you guys for sharing that. Let me ask you this last question. Other than your book, which I'm going to have in the action plan. So again, for the listener, jimharshawjr.com/action. What is, I'm going to have that, you link to your book there, but any other books you might recommend?
Yeah, I love to recommend this book. It is absolutely one of my favorites. It's called The Four Agreements, and it's by Don Miguel Ruiz. One of the agreements is about not taking things personally. So if you're the type of person who doesn't like failure and rejection because of, there's that I take it all personally thing, it's a great piece to the book, and it's just a wonderful book.
Yeah, and I recommend O-Shift, O-H-S-H-I-F-T by Jennifer Powers, a fascinating book that will help people really change their mindset on a lot of different topics.
Love it. I tell you, I was in direct sales, inside sales for a short time, and I was just on the phone, hammering the phones, and I've always sort of had that sort of people pleaser, not wanting to disappoint people mindset, and man, that cured me of it pretty quickly, because I just had I had very clear goals, and a lot of them were really no goals, and that really helped. So those are great recommendations of books. So thank you guys so much for coming on. How does the listener follow you, find you, get in touch with you?
We would always recommend them to just come to goforno.com, and it's spelled GOFORNO.com, just like it sounds. And we've got a no quotient assessment so people can see where they are in their thinking around the idea of failure, rejection, and hearing no, blogs, videos. So a lot that people can do to learn this concept further.
Great concept. It's a life lesson. I'm so glad you guys came on the show. Thanks for making time, Andrea, Richard. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
our
thank
pleasure.
you, Jim.
And again, for the listener, grab the action plan for this. I'm going to have tons of quotes and some resources and links there for you on the action plan, jimharshawjr.com/action. And until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success. Success Through Failure is a member of the Athlete on Fire podcast network. Check out all of our shows at athleteonfire.com.